Everyone to the closed session portion of the city council meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is now 5 p.m. Madam Clerk, can you please take roll call?
Councilmember Gama,
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez,
Here.
Councilmember McQueen-Lejeune,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez,
Here.
Mayor Martinez.
Present. We will now hear public comments. Any comments from those participating on Zoom? We'd like to ask that you use the raise your hand feature so we can call on you. You will have 3 minutes to provide your comments. Madam Clerk, does anyone have any public comments tonight?
No public comments.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, please read the closed session item into the record.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Martinez. We have 2 agenda items on the closed session tonight for the City Council. The first one is conference with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6. The agency designated representatives are listed on the agenda, and the employee association is the Police Officers Association. The second closed session agenda item is public employee appointment pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 and 54954E. The title is the City Manager Interim.
All right, thank you, Mr. Spalding. Do any council members have any conflicts to disclose for the listed closed session agenda items?
I do have a conflict with item A, conference regarding POA association due to potential spousal income.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
I don't have a conflict, but I do, for transparency purposes, want to state that I did have a conversation with the POA president today. But there were no decisions, no promises made, no decisions. I just listened and asked questions.
Okay. That being said, I also had a conversation with the president today, talked to him for about 15 minutes, no promises, just me listening to what he had to say. Anyone else? Okay. All right. Council will recess to closed session. The time is now 5:02 p.m. We'll be back in a bit. Thank you. At 6:30. City Council regular meeting. I'm calling this meeting to order. The time is now 6:30 PM. Will you all please stand and join me for the flag salute? Everyone ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Madam Clerk, can you please take roll?
Councilmember Gama,
Here.
Councilmember Hernandez. Here. Councilmember McQueen LaJean,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Perez,
Here.
and Mayor Martinez.
Present. Thank you. Tonight's inspiration is going to be given by Councilmember Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor Martinez. Tonight I bring you an inspirational message based on the passing of a former city council member and mayor, Murray Rosenbluth. I want to acknowledge his passing, but also acknowledge his legacy that he leaves behind as a way of inspiring those that have come after him and those who have yet to sit up here on this dais. Murray Rosenbluth was age 91 when he passed away this weekend, February 18th. He was a chemical engineer, earned his degree from Drexel University. He served the U.S. Army platoon and had stations in Europe during the 1950s and during the Cold War. He was honorably discharged as a captain. He was also a founding member of CAUSE, Progressive Action Group, which continues to exist today. He was an engineering manager with Procter & Gamble for 30 years. And most importantly, he was well loved by the library community and highly adored by the Ventura County Library Foundation members. And I see Nancy Schramm is here tonight. I imagine she's going to have a few words to say. But Murray really loved libraries. In fact, he helped support the Rosenbluth Family Homework Center at the Ray D. Pewter Library in Port Hueneme. He financially supported that center for many, many years. And I do have a statement I'd like to read from Kathy Long, former County Board of Supervisors. Oh, there's supposed to be a picture of Murray up on the screen. Do we have that?
Did we receive it?
Oh, you didn't receive it? Okay. Well, here is her comments. My sincere condolences to the family, friends, and community of Port Hueneme for the passing of former council member Murray J. Rosenbluth. I had the pleasure of serving on the Board of Supervisors during the time that Murray served the city and found him to be so dedicated and passionate about Port Hueneme. We worked together on most things, library books, access, funding, etc. for the Port Hueneme Library and for the county-wide solutions to ensure libraries remain in the core fabric of our community. He was funny, loving of his family, and a very caring man. May he rest in peace. Thank you, Kathy Long, former County Board of Supervisors. So that's the inspiration tonight, to remember Murray and remember what legacy he leaves behind and his contributions to our library system. And I believe Councilmember McQueen LaJean will be making a request to adjourn in his memory tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your inspiration, Councilmember Hernandez. Mr. City Attorney, can you please provide a closed session report?
Yes, Mayor Martinez. There was no action taken in closed session tonight with respect to the first agenda item, conference with labor negotiators. As for the second agenda item, public employee appointment, that matter has been continued to after tonight's meeting, at which time the council will recess the regular meeting and reopen the closed session.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kevin Spalding. We will now hear general public comments not pertaining to items on the agenda. Any comments from those participating on Zoom, we'd ask that you use your raise your hand feature so that we can call you during the appropriate time. This will be the same process for comments pertaining to each agenda item as well. Staff will unmute your mic and you'll have 3 minutes to provide your comments. Madam Clerk, are there any regular public comments tonight?
Yes. Our first one will be from Tama Fig.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I wanted to address the council regarding the Surfside Motel. I know that it's an ongoing process. I know that they've got several years to do their work. My concern is that my property abuts right up against the very back of their property. We share a common wall. The vagrants and the drug dealers and the druggies have been increasing in numbers. And my son, who's also going to speak, lives in the back unit. And in fact, we just called the police 2 nights ago. This has been an ongoing process. I don't know what can be done. I don't know, with Mr. Peeney, the property owner, we all know he's not a nice man. I don't know if it's going to take maybe the city attorney in concert with other people. My concern is that, we don't, again, they're coming over the fence. There was a crackhead standing on the fence picking oranges off my tree, and she refused to get down. So again, it's getting, more and more and more. So, and this has not anything to do, I already told, Acting Chief Albertson, this is not a slight on the police department in any way. They're moving them out as best they can. I think that this needs to be a little bit more, and I would ask the council to maybe direct it back to staff to figure out what we can do to protect my property and the housing next door, because it also involves part of the city's housing as well. Thank you for that. And second, on the consent agenda, I know you guys can't speak to it, but I am curious why the city is paying the school district for the mayor's time. I appreciate that you want to go and you want to do that. I don't think that it's a precedent that the city council should be setting. We shouldn't be spending money for any of the council members for their jobs, because I think it does kind of set a bad precedent. So again, I don't know how that works. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but and again, it's on the consent agenda, so it's not like anybody can speak to it. But so anyways, that was it. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Brian Fig.
Hi, this is Brian Fig. As my mother just previously mentioned, I inhabit the back unit in the property, and my experience over the past 4 months since I've moved in has been increasingly more unnerving. I remember just shortly after a month after I moved in, I got a call from my mom in the middle of the night, from my brother actually, who initially called her, that there were a couple of individuals in the back who were whistling and doing very sketchy things, throwing things, and it actually appeared at one point as though they were looking over the fence like they were potentially going to hop over, and who knows what. That was the first incident that occurred. The police came out, detained the individuals, interviewed them, and eventually decided to let them go. A couple of months later, in the middle of the night at 2:30 in the morning, I'm, just so you know, even though it's not really relevant, I'm a heavy sleeper, but loud noises were coming from the hotel to the point that it was able to wake me up out of my sleep. And then after I woke up and I was able to sort of listen in a little bit, I found out that they were whispers and shouting later on. It was getting probably about 5 to 10 minutes in duration before I called the police, and I said, okay, there's something going on back here. Can you please send a unit out? I think they did. Shortly thereafter, all of the noises stopped. And then things were quiet up for 2 months until yesterday, at which point, as my mother previously stated, a hardcore drug addict was standing on my fence trying to reach down from a 5'10" fence to grab oranges on the ground because she was high. It was a very unnerving experience, to the point where I am actively looking at getting security measures in place, both surveillance and potentially some sort of like taser weapon to defend myself should this keep escalating. This is getting out of hand. I'm not blaming the police. In fact, from what I've heard, they're actually coming through once a day, which is good. But this event that happened yesterday happened in broad daylight. That's I think the scariest thing about this is that what are they going to do at night, right? If they're willing to do this in the day when typically anybody can see what they're doing, what are they going to do in the evening? So I'm asking you as a citizen, before things escalate, because they will escalate if this continues, I will be forced to defend myself at some point if this continues escalating. We need to stop this now. I don't know what tools you guys have at your disposal. I don't know what kind of weapons you have to go after Dario Peeney, but it needs to happen before things get bad, because I can guarantee you, Like, just what happened if this drug addict fell off of the fence? Suddenly now you have a lawsuit on your hands, right? This is going to get bad no matter what way you look at this, and it needs to get dealt with. Otherwise, everybody's going to be worse off. Thank you.
Joan Tharp.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and staff. This last Saturday, volunteers with Surfrider Ventura County and Ventura Audubon Society held a cleanup at Ormond Beach and Lagoon. I want to thank Council Member Gama, as well as Antonio and Sergio from Public Works for their help in making this happen. Besides removing furniture and other household waste, we were pulling disintegrating pieces of EPS styrofoam out of the reeds by handfuls, literal handfuls. On July 19th, 2021, I presented as a representative of the Surfrider Foundation, Ventura County, a request to create a city ordinance to ban EPS and single-use plastic foodware. Prior to that, then City Council Member Martinez requested that staff explore a plastics ban, which was presented at about the same time. Y'all and Mr. Spalding, the former city manager, and Mr. Peretz have had a copy of the Surfrider proposed ordinance since July 20th, 2021. You've had information on the cost of replacement since July 21st, 2021. In December of 2021, Steve Kinney was asked to discuss the ban with affected businesses. On February 9th, 2022, we were informed the workshop he planned didn't take place due to a lack of interest from businesses, and that he would present his findings on February 21st, 2022, which I believe he did. That was a year ago, exactly a year ago. On September 30th, 2022, we sent you a reminder letter informing you that Oxnard was moving forward with a ban. Councilmember Hernandez replied that she would see if staff was ready to put this on the agenda, and she did make that request. 17 months after our first request, this is still not on the agenda. I have heard reasons why that is, but in the meantime, Oxnard unanimously passed an EPS ban on January 17th, 2023, which went into effect February 16, 2023, 5 days ago, with citations being issued for noncompliance starting September 1st, 2023. The city of Oxnard joins the cities of Ojai, Ventura, Camarillo, and Thousand Oaks in banning this toxic, non-biodegradable material. In doing so, they're helping to protect our environment, our health, marine and animal life, and our oceans, waves, and beaches. Kathleen Mallory with the City of Oxnard is willing to provide information about their ordinance, and you have information from Ventura as well. Our ask is that you pass an ordinance as soon as possible. Will the City of Port Hueneme prioritize an EPS ban and make 100% of the county's beach cities styrofoam free? Thank you for your time.
Nancy Schramm.
Good evening, Mayor Martinez and City Council members, city staff. I'm Nancy Schramm, and I am the Library Director for the Ventura County Library System. Thank you, Council Member Hernandez, for your comments about Murray Rosenbluth. I'm here tonight because I also want to make just a few comments about Murray and his tremendous positive impact on library services in Port Hueneme. When I first started working for the library system back in 2016, I went into the Port Hueneme Library, and it was a day after school, and I was just instantly amazed and impressed at how busy the homework center was. It was a hub of activity. It was just very busy, and there were kids there. They were receiving help with their math homework, and they were learning spelling. There was a library staff member there to assist them. There was computer for them to use. It was just fantastic. It is by far the busiest homework center in our Ventura County Library System. And the thanks for that homework center goes to Murray Rosenbluth and his family For many, many years, the Rosenbluth Family Foundation contributed funds in support of that homework center. It simply would not have been possible without the Rosenbluth family led by Murray Rosenbluth. And my condolences to his family, my deepest sympathies on the loss of Murray. I will personally miss Murray. I connected with him at least once a year to talk about the homework center. He cared about it. He stayed active. He cared about the children. And he put his money where his mouth was. He stepped up and contributed funds. And even though Murray is gone, his legacy remains. It will continue to remain, and it will positively impact children in Port Hueneme for years and years to come. Thank you so much, and we really will miss Murray. Thank you.
That concludes the public comments for tonight.
Hooray for Murray.
All right, now we're gonna go to agenda approval for city council. The consent calendar item CC7 will be pulled, as so as the CC9 from the agenda after having received further input, and will be brought back to council at a later date. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as revised?
Move to approve?
I'm sorry, did you pull item 7 out of the consent agenda?
And 9.
9. Second.
May we please take a vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion carries unanimously.
Okay, we're gonna move on to conflict of interest declaration. Do any members of the council have any conflicts of interest to disclose for any item on the agenda? I will disclose number 8 as it pertains to me and my state of travel and teacher leave reimbursement, so I will be not voting on that item. No, we didn't vote on the,
We voted on pulling.
that
those
was,
two
that was
items.
item number 8.
I thought we pulled 7 and 9.
Yeah, 7 and 9.
Mayor Martinez, I would recommend pulling item number 8 so that you can properly abstain.
Okay, then I'll pull number 8 so that I can properly abstain and so we can vote.
So we're voting on.
But we haven't voted on that.
We're not at the consent calendar yet. That was the agenda approval.
Yeah,
but if,
that was the
yeah,
agenda.
Okay.
So we can
Okay.
pull 8 at the consent if you'd like.
Okay, we're gonna move on to the presentations. The first one is the Crisis Intervention Team CIT Officer of the Year Awards, Commander Albertson.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council, members of staff, and members of the public. Tonight, I'm here to recognize Acting Detective Sergeant Nora Starna and Officer Andrew Garcia for receiving the 2022 CIT Officer of the Year Award, which was presented to them at the Ventura County Behavioral Health Advisory Meeting on January 23rd, 2022. From my understanding, this is the first time that officers from Port Hueneme Police Department have received this award. On May 19th, 2022, Acting Detective Sergeant Nora Starna and Officer Andrew Garcia successfully negotiated the safe surrender of a suicidal individual who had climbed onto the second-story roof of a building in a shopping center located at Ventura Road and Bay Boulevard in Port Hueneme and claimed to be armed with a firearm and an explosive. A drone was deployed, and it was determined that the subject did not appear to be armed. During the standoff, which lasted several hours, the subject removed several concrete tiles from the roof and threw them at officers, damaging several parked vehicles, including a Gold Coast ambulance. The Ventura County Crisis Team responded, but the subject refused to communicate with them. He was determined to have an extensive violent criminal history, which was communicated to all of the officers who were at the scene. Acting Detective Sergeant Starna and Officer Garcia built a rapport with the subject, who was in a highly agitated state and acting very erratic. They alternated engaging him calmly in conversation as he moved back and forth to different sides of the building. Acting Detective Sergeant Starna was able to eventually convince the subject to surrender after promising him coffee and food once he came down. No one was injured during the incident, and the professionalism, skill, and teamwork of both officers are to be commended. Please join me in congratulating Nora and Andrew on a job well done. I have some certificates for them here. One is for you, signed by the mayor. You're welcome. So with that, I open it up to any comments city council wants to make.
Yeah, it's a really tough job. We all know that, and it seems to be getting tougher these days with those types of individuals. And I'm super thankful that you have the patience and the professionalism to talk somebody out of a really bad idea. And I hope that person's getting the help that they need. And I hope he or thanks you in the future. And I hope he really turns his life around. So thank you for giving him a second chance.
Congratulations, Officer Starna and Officer Garcia. Thank you for doing such a fabulous job, a dangerous job, and protecting our community. I think that the establishment of the CIT program was one of the better decisions that the department made years ago, and subsequently have officers like you well-trained to handle these situations, which requires more than just patience, more than just, the ability to talk somebody down based on coffee and donuts. But your training came through, and I really want to congratulate you and thank you for your continued dedication and service.
Yes, I just want to say that I am proud of our police department, and I'd like to make note that every one of our officers are CIT trained, and whoever started that so many years ago, it was a great thing that they put into effect. And you just show your training that you receive here in Hueneme, and I think we're the best trained police department in the area. So I thank you for what you do every day.
I'd just like to thank you both. Sometimes it might seem thankless what you do, but know that we, the city and the residents of the city, appreciate the work that you are doing and that you continue to do for us. So thank you so much for all of your efforts and your good work. Thank you.
Yes, on behalf of the city, I'd like to thank you and congratulate you. Thank you so much for all your hard work.
And I'd like to extend an invitation to the mayor if I can to come down and take a photo.
Yes, we will now continue with the police department year of the end report.
All right, so now that you got to hear all about the good work of Detective Sergeant Starna and Officer Garcia, I'm now going to give you our year-end report and tell you about all the great work that the men and women of the police department have been doing over the last year. This is basically going to be kind of a 3,000-foot view of what we've done. And the reason I'm going to give a 3,000-foot view is because I'm going to talk about some data points that I think are very important at measuring the success of your police department. And we'll get into that as I go in through the presentation. First, I want to start with our mission statement, which is serving our community with pride and professionalism, and our vision and priorities, which are to be a professional organization to reduce crime, traffic and pedestrian safety, community engagement, and community policing. This is our current organizational chart. The boxes in yellow are our vacancies. So obviously we have the chief of police position vacant right now. We have a vacant community services officer, 2 vacant police officers, and a vacant part-time records technician, excuse me. One side of the department are our sworn personnel, which comes under the field services commander, which is me. And then the professional non-sworn side of the department is under the command of the support services manager, which is Sylvia Paniagua, and that's dispatch, records, evidence. So talk about our current staffing levels. We have funded, 24 funded sworn positions, 3 current vacancies. So it's police chief, 1 commander, 4 sergeants, 2 senior police officers, 10 police officers. 1 is assigned as the HLO. We have 3 reserve officers, which those are non-paid positions. I added CSOs in here, even though as far as budget funding, they're not considered sworn, but under the penal code, they are sworn. They're just PC 832, so they have limited arrest capability. They can issue notices to appear. That's why I put them with the sworn group, even though when it comes to the funding, they're in the non-sworn side. We have our investigative services division, which are detectives. We have 1 sergeant, 3 detectives, and currently 2 are senior officers and 1 is the police officer. So our total funded non-sworn professional staff is 12. We have 2 current vacancies. So like I mentioned when we talked about the org chart, we have 1 support services division manager, 1 senior dispatcher, 5 dispatchers, 1 property and evidence supervisor, 1 support services technician who is part-time, 2 senior records technicians, and 1 part-time support services technician. So the reason I go back to 2017 on this slide is basically that most current police chief we had was here from 2017 until 2022. And so I use kind of 2017 as a marker for these numbers. The percentage of our current sworn staff who did not work here in 2017 is 41%. Percentage of current non-sworn staff not here in 2017 is 45%. The percentage of total current staff working for the police department who was not here in 2017 is 42%. So it's almost half of the department has been hired since 2017. And the reason that's significant is because when I get into some of the numbers and we start talking about some of the work that we're doing, I think this speaks to kind of 2 things. One is that since 2017, we've made some really good hiring decisions. We've hired a lot of very competent non-sworn and sworn employees, but I think it also speaks to the competency of our tenured staff, the staff who are training officers, training dispatchers, the ones who are passing on the culture of this agency to all these new employees. And so I think it speaks volumes to kind of the both sides, the people that are coming on, but also the people that we currently have. Let's speak about our current recruitments for a second. We have 4 open recruitments. It's a community services officer, a lateral academy graduate police officer recruitment, a police officer trainee recruitment, and a part-time support services technician. So the status of those recruitments is our CSO, we have 1 candidate on the eligibility list. Lateral academy graduate police officer, we have 1 candidate in the process. We extended on that person a conditional offer of employment, and they only have their medical exam remaining, so hopefully that person will be on within the next couple months. Police officer training, we have 1 candidate in the process. We extended a conditional offer of employment. And on the slide I have, he has a psych and his medical exams remain, but he took a psych yesterday and I'm happy to report that he passed. So all he has now is his medical examination. So we're hoping to have him on board in the April Police Academy. New employees that have been hired in 2022 are 5. So go to the call summary. So these numbers are not necessarily calls for service. These are calls that are coming into our communications center. So in 2022, we had 8,141 911 calls, 26,045 admin calls. Those are the business lines, and that's just the business lines in the communications center. That's not the detective business lines, staff business lines. So the total calls into our dispatch center for the year were 34,168. So I wanted just to think for a second, because our communication center is usually staffed by one dispatcher. Very rarely would we have two working. There may be some overlap, but that's one person working in that communication center, and the call volume that's coming into that center is almost 35,000 calls. That's an incredible amount of work that is being accomplished in our center. This is just the kind of a breakdown of the 911 calls, admin calls, the total. So you can see August was our busiest month for all three. So talk about incident summary. So these are basically, when we say incidents, we're talking about calls for service. And so incident total that was logged into our CAT system was 18,480. The number of incidents that actually generated some type of law enforcement response, an officer going out to a call or handling a call over the phone, was 14,137. And we took a total of 2,299 police reports for the year. The most common incident types were calls related to homelessness, subjects disturbing, and traffic stops. And so the homeless related calls were just a little over 2,000. The subject disturbing calls were just a little over 1,200, but our traffic stops were 891. So we go back to that first slide, and we talked about traffic and pedestrian safety being one of our priorities. And I know, City Council probably has heard it from the community. I've certainly heard it. I get phone calls all the time that there seems to be some perception that we're not doing traffic enforcement. Well, you see, we made almost 900 traffic stops. That's a lot. And not all of them result in citations or arrests, but it's still it's a lot of traffic enforcement that's going on, even though we don't have a dedicated traffic officer or a motor officer. So these are just some quality of life incidents that I want to highlight. Not all these calls are result in criminal activity, but these are just things that I think really interfere with the community's quality of life and their enjoyment. And animal complaints, we had 86, fireworks, 102. Obviously, we get a lot of fireworks calls, especially around New Year's and 4th of July. Juveniles disturbing were 58. Keep the peace calls were 77. Loud music and parties were 449. Subjects disturbing 1,236. Suspicious circumstances 352. Suspicious subject 352. Suspicious subject 362. Suspicious vehicle 104, and vehicle disturbing 110. So this is just a incident breakdown by month, and as you can see, October was our busiest month of the year, followed by September and August. This is a breakdown by day. So in 2022, our busiest day for calls was Saturday, followed by Friday and Wednesday.
Take a break on Sunday.
Yeah, apparently so. The incident breakdown by time of day, the hour between 10 p.m. and 11 p.m. was by far our busiest hour of the day, with 1,281 calls. So this is the number of community response activity that we engaged in, and so it was 7,296. And what this is these are things that we get reported to us through GoGov, that come through our Facebook Messenger, that come to my email, come to my voicemail, go to the beat coordinators, voicemails or emails, or the sergeants. And so these are things like frequent patrol requests, neighborhood meetings, presentations that we do in the community. So a lot of this is non-criminal related activity, but see, it's almost 7,500 incidents that we engaged in that were basically in response to community complaints or concerns. And I think that's important, because when we talk about allocating resources, we have limited resources, but we do also feel that the community's concerns and complaints are important enough for us to go out and address it. And by this number here, you can see that we're doing a lot of community response activity. And a lot of these are requests for extra patrol because of some issue that's happening, or extra traffic enforcement at the crosswalks in front of the schools, or traffic enforcement when parents are dropping off or picking up their kids from school. So arrests, we made 813. 588 were male, 225 were female, 794 were adults, 19 were juveniles, 207 were felonies and 606 were misdemeanors. And so when we report this to DOJ, we report the primary charge. And so a lot of these, they have multiple counts. So what we've done is each arrest, we count one charge. And so that's how we make the distinction between the number of felonies and misdemeanors that we've made arrests for. This is just a breakdown of the arrest summary. And so as you can see, March was the busiest month for misdemeanor arrests, and October was the busiest month for felony arrests. Traffic citations, we wrote 273 traffic citations and 25 criminal citations. The criminal citations, we are authorized to release misdemeanor arrests in the field with citation if certain criteria is met in the penal code, and so that's what those are. Most misdemeanor arrests that we actually physically take someone into custody, we arrest them on what we call an OR release. It's not a citation, and so those are typically arrests that are released in the field. I want to talk about our response times. Dispatch received to unit en route time on average was 1.7 minutes. So that's the time that a call comes into dispatch to a unit is actually receives a call to start responding. So that's our average response time. Unit dispatch to arrival time, our average was 3.9 minutes. It's pretty good. That's from the time that an officer is dispatched and goes en route to the call to the time they actually arrive. And I filled a lot of calls, sometimes weekly, sometimes not that often, where people say it took 25 minutes for an officer to get to my emergency. When we pull the call log, we usually find it's probably about 4 or 5 minutes, but this is our average, 3.9. So that's a pretty good number in my opinion. So we're going to talk about crime stats and uniform crime reporting. So what we report to the state are currently, we are going to go to a system called NIBRS. Hopefully by next year, that'll be a whole different criteria. I won't get into that right now. I'll just talk about UCR because that's what we're currently doing. So we report Part 1 crimes on a return or on a form called Return A. It includes murder, non-negligent manslaughter, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, simple assault, burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, and arson. And although we reported on Return A to the state, simple assaults are not considered Part 1 crimes. We still report them, but we don't include them in our Part 1 statistics. Violent crime is defined as the sum total of murder and non-negligent manslaughter, rape, robbery, aggravated assault. It includes simple assault. Both assault classifications include domestic violence incidents. I believe back in 2014 or 15, the definition of a rape was changed to where it now includes certain sex crimes against children. So we did see an uptick in the rape numbers because of that change in classification over the past few years. Property crime is defined as a sum total of burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft. It excludes arson, which is a standalone category. As such, the Return A crime total may not equal the sum total of violent crimes and property crimes. So I just want to explain that. If you see some discrepancies in the number, that's why. Only known offenses are reported. Offenses are counted in the year they are reported, not necessarily the year they actually occurred. So for example, a victim was sexually assaulted in 2017, but didn't report it to us until 2022. The offense is counted in 2022. So this is how our Part 1 crimes broke down this year. And so what I did is the chart on the left is the numbers including arson. And then on the right, I took arson out. Didn't change much because our arson numbers stayed the same. So the percentages are very close. And so essentially what we had was for violent crimes, we had a decrease in 8.1%. And in property crimes, we had an increase in 14.6%. So our total Part 1 crime increase was 11.1% in 2022, which equals roughly 45 additional incidents. But if you look at the violent crimes, our aggravated assaults were down 13.6%, and our homicides were down 100%. We had 2 in 2021, we had 0 in 2022. Our property crimes are typically driven by thefts, and by far a majority of those are thefts from unlocked vehicles. For a theft from a vehicle to be a burglary, it has to be a locked vehicle. And so what you're seeing reflected there are a lot of preventable thefts. We've done a lot of outreach, people not leaving their car doors open, leaving valuables in sight. That's always an uphill battle for us, but that's what you see there as far as the increase. Now I want to start talking about something that really speaks to how successful the police department is and how good of a job they're doing, because a lot of people think, well, crime stats are what is the most important, but crime stats are a lot of times can be deceiving. These areas I'm going to talk about right now are really, I think, kind of the measure on for you as policymakers and city council members to kind of get a sense of how the police department's doing. And these are our annual mandated DOJ reporting categories. And these exist because the state expects police departments to engage in a high level of transparency. And so these are things they've identified through legislation that are very important for police departments. And so every year we report SB 54 reporting, which is all individuals transferred from our custody to immigration authorities, death in custody and arrest-related deaths, our law enforcement personnel survey, which we report the number of sworn male and female personnel and non-sworn male and female personnel, the AB 953 civilians complaints against peace officers, including the number of criminal and non-criminal complaints and dispositions. That also includes a requirement that we report all racial profiling complaints that are filed. AB 71 use of force reporting. We must report shootings or any use of force incident that results in serious bodily injury or death to a civilian and or a peace officer. And RIPA, which we just started reporting last year, which is the Racial Identification and Profiling Act, which is also AB 953. And we must report data on all stops as defined by the government code conducted by the agency's peace officers. And these have to be entered by every officer per shift before they go home for the day, every day, unless there's some extenuating circumstance on why they didn't report that. So all of our reports are available on the DOJ Open Justice website, and I've put the address up there. It's usually a year behind, but you can view all of our public reports that we report. So our SB 54 transfers to immigration were 0. Our death and in custody and arrest-related deaths were 0. And I'll say this, I've been here since 2002, and we haven't had an in-custody death or an arrest-related death since then. Our law enforcement personnel survey, we reported 19 male sworn personnel, 3 female sworn personnel, 4 male non-sworn, and 8 female non-sworn. Our civilians complaints against peace officers, we had 3 filed for the year, 2 are unfounded, 1's pending. Those were all service complaints, which basically none of them were allegations of misconduct. They were all basically the person filing the complaint just didn't really like the way the call was handled. And we received no racial profiling complaints since, I believe, in 2017, maybe 2016, when it became a requirement to report racial profiling complaints. We've had 0 every single year. We also have not had any excessive force complaints for probably the last 5 years at least. The AB 71 use of force reporting, 0. We did have 5 non-reportable use of force incidents. Our RIPA stop report, we reported 1,834 stops with 2,145 individuals encountered. So a stop is defined under RIPA as any detention or any interaction resulting in a search, including calls for service. And so if you look at go back and look at our calls for service, the number of incidents we're responding to, the number of traffic stops that we've conducted, the number of RIPA stops we've conducted, and we've only had 3 complaints filed and 5 uses of force. So when I talk about crime stats not being really the only important measure of how well a police department is doing, I think these things really speak volumes to the professional standards and the quality of our personnel. So talk about our 2022 accomplishments. So we hosted Explorer Academy, our community blood drive, Explorer car show, the Wainimi Beach Festival, our Explorer Turkey Drive, our backpack medicine event, the NAMI walk participation, our Special Olympics torch run participation, Cops for Tops event, our full implementation of our AB 953 Racial and Identifying Profiling Act reporting, I'm the administrator of that system, as well as Sergeant Ryan Bates. We're the ones who monitor that. We audit it. We create all the accounts. We make sure that the stops are being entered daily. Our AB 481 military equipment funding city ordinance resolution, full implementation of SB2 Peace Officer Decertification Mark 43 reporting software. We're now required to report 9 categories of misconduct to post if we receive a complaint, including one of those 9 categories. And the Mark 43 is a software that's used to do that. Implementation of our pay scheduler software to better manage minimum staffing and overtime. Implementation of Power DMS Field Training Officer Program software to better manage our field training program. We implemented a 5-year Axon Taser with virtual reality training and evidence, which will allow us to have higher quality and more frequent training with our tasers. We implemented a Bowler Wrap less lethal force option. We're still in the process of developing a department policy before we actually roll that out into the field. We hired 3 police officers, hired 1 public safety dispatcher, hired 1 community services officer, and an 8.1% reduction in violent crime. And so going to our community engagement, because community engagement and community policing is very important to the police department. So instead of listing everything, I thought I would just throw a few pictures up there of the things that we've done throughout the year. The Cops for Tots, participate in Autism Awareness Month, the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, the blood drive, all the other things that we've talked about, the Explore Academy, the Cops for Tots, the Torch Run, Mental Health Awareness Month, the Turkey Giveaway, and some of the other things that we're doing on Facebook. So before we wrap up, I know the homeless liaison officer did a presentation to council, so I'm not going to re-go through his entire presentation. I just want to touch on a few highlights. The homeless liaison officer position was created in 2021. The point in time count in 2022 was 30. The point in time count that we just had in February of 2023 was 12. Individuals housed in 2022 was 2, and I'm told that process took about 3 months from start to finish. Individuals housed since 2021 has been 3, and unfortunately, a majority of our homeless population have been service resistant. So we will continue doing outreach the best we can, but it's been challenging. So our short-term goals are to identify and go out and contact our homeless population, continue with the backpack medicine event, identify other county services, develop a working relationship with the Oxnard HLO team. And our long-term goals are working relationship with Housing Authority to try to get people housed if we can. Crime prevention through environmental design. That's where our HLO will go out to our local businesses and give them some pointers on surveillance and maybe lighting and some other things that they can do to kind of reduce some of the criminal activity that unfortunately goes along with vagrancy, not necessarily homelessness, but with the vagrant problem of homelessness. Continue with the One Stop, try to get more people to participate in that, and then explore some grant funding opportunities. And so with that, I will take any questions.
Questions, comments?
I'd just like to focus a little bit on the developing a working relationship with Oxnard. Like we did our cleanup this weekend, and it's a partnership that we have with Oxnard. And what we do is the city provides dumpsters and some man hours, and then we go across the border and pick up trash in the Ormond Lagoon. And we see the reconstituting of the population out there and the amount of trash. So, I mean, this week we did like 4 or 5 dumpsters full, plus the tractor pulling mattresses and big items off the beach. And I just think we really need to come up with a way to try and keep that pop. But again, it's in Oxnard, but it has a negative impact on Hueneme. And you know, we just heard about the Peony Hotel and all that, and I know that appears to be an area that where drug activity may be occurring. So I don't know what the answer is, but I do hope that we could find a way to work with our neighbor and try and lower those numbers out there that cause environmental damage and public risk and health.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commander, for your excellent presentation, and congratulations to your department for the good work and good stats that you just shared with us. And thank you for also serving as interim chief of police. I know that can't be too easy. But congratulations to really a professional and well-trained department. We're so proud of them. I hope you will share that with them. I wanted to ask you just a couple of questions. We had, let's see, what day was this? I'm losing track of time. Just the last 5, 6 days, maybe it was over the weekend, we had a prowler burglar incident at Las Palomas, Harbor Lights, and I think Marlboro was also affected. Some of the questions that I saw come up on social media were the use of an alert system. We were fortunate in this case that we had a ring photo of the individual, and that it actually ended up in the Star News, which was really good. The ring system actually worked, and we were able to put you were able to put a photo out of the suspect. And is there and it got out to residents, but I'm not sure that it got out fully. Do you think that the use of an alert system would have been something that we could have used in that situation to alert residents in those 3 neighborhoods?
Yes, and so typically what we have done, if we have something that's active or we've used it missing persons, we will disseminate a VC alert message. Unfortunately, when this incident was going on, we were also having a network update, and so
Oh, that's right.
and yeah, that's also why it took a little while for the update to come out. So, yeah, that's something that we'll discuss, and going forward, those are options that we can use. Yeah. Unfortunately, what we found though with the VC alerts, sometimes there's some bleed over in some areas where it's not really happening, and this was such a small geographical area that we opted to go with the public alert. And
Okay. Right. And I'm curious, what's the status of the dispatch center? Have they finally moved out, or are they still in their
no, so
temporary location?
the remodel's still in progress, and I don't have an estimated time when it's going to be finished. That would have to be facilities that would speak to that.
Okay. All right. Also, there was a suggestion I made some time ago about reaching out to representatives from the car clubs. Some of the car clubs frequent our beaches, and some of them participate in the donuts and the speeding. And is that something viable that the police department would be able to do, to reach out to them and just meet with them and have come to an understanding kind of meeting with them?
Yeah, it's something we can definitely we can discuss with our beat coordinators and see maybe pursuing something like that. Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
That's all I have.
I have a question. It's unrelated to something you presented, but I thought it was something we approved some time ago, which was gates on the parking lots. Did we approve something like that? I can't recall.
As I recall, Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem, we did, and that's a project that facilities is going to design and bring back to the council in the future.
Got it. Okay. I just wanted to say thank you for a job well done. I have it from people who know you and work with you that you're doing a great job as acting as interim. And this is actually your second time as it's holding down the fort. So I just want to thank you and congratulate you on a job well done.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations on a job well done. By any chance, do you know of any of the progress in terms of the new police chief?
So the current status is the candidate is going through backgrounds, and when that process is complete, we'll be happy to share an update with council.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for your presentation. Are there any more questions?
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Is anybody chilly in here, or is it just me? Could we lower the AC just a tad bit?
The heat has been turned up. Right now, the front door is propped open to ensure that people can come in and attend our meetings. So it's
Okay.
pretty chilly outside.
It's okay. All right, so we're gonna move on to the consent calendar. We'll now consider items on the consent calendar.
I think we have one more presentation, Mayor.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Jumping the gun. All right, so presentation number 3, broadband master plan update. Consultant Steve Kenny.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I would just like to give you a brief snapshot at the midterm point of the broadband master plan project this fall. And by brief, I mean 3 slides brief. Just to reorient you and to make sure the public is aware kind of what this whole project is about. Back in October, you approved a contract for us to engage technical consultants to create a master plan for future broadband improvements in our city. Broadband is a term that just pertains generally to high-speed, always-on internet. It comes in various forms, but the purpose of the broadband master plan is to find the best form and the most efficient form for that to take place here in Port Hueneme. So that it is to design a backbone of fiber optic cable, which then becomes available to residents and businesses individually throughout the city for their own internet needs. So it's important for 2 reasons. One, it improves the quality of life now for everybody who's here, both residents and businesses. And number 2, looking into the future, it improves the city's economic development prospects as a business attraction feature to make sure that we are at the leading edge of capability when the internet is such a basic and important utility for businesses and individuals as well. So the project has been on since October. It's been in the data gathering phase through those first few months. Sort of internal technical stuff involving city staff and contacts with the school district and the port and other important institutions that need to be connected into this community-wide network for broadband. Now we're at the current phase, which is community engagement, to learn both the current levels of service and satisfaction of internet service around the city, and also what's needed in the future to support the needs of households for schoolwork or for gaming or videos, and for businesses in their technical needs. And all this will lead to a final report coming to you, we expect about May of this year, which will recommend a path forward in terms of investment and capital improvements throughout the city to support widely available broadband. So just drill down a little bit on the community engagement, what has occurred so far and is occurring. We had 2 live workshops on the 3rd and 4th this month at the community center and also at Hueneme Bay. There were about 125 people, I'd say, between the 2 workshops who attended, and a very interested and lively group. They were one for individuals, one for businesses, and it's quite in depth. If completely filled out, it provides the consultants a very in-depth picture of what is available now to various people and businesses and what their needs are in the future. Because you need to correlate both what you would like to have on internet service and what you're willing to pay on internet service, because faster means more expensive. So that's the balance that people are always wrestling with. So all that information is the point of the survey. So far, more than 200 responses have been received. That was quite startling, frankly, to the consultants. they're used to very low levels of public participation in this. Like I said, it's a pretty dry subject, and unless you've got sort of a complaint about your own internet service, you're not really terribly motivated to delve into the technicalities of it. But they have received over 200 responses so far. The survey can be found on the website. It's available in both English and Spanish. Thank you for the suggestion. And then there will be one final community workshop in mid-March. That will be Zoom only. And the survey will be available continually until then. We'll wrap it up right after that workshop. And this is really the sort of the commercial part that I want to point to. It's the last slide. After that, it's just questions. So let me go back to that and just leave that on the screen so that anybody who may be watching can look at this. This is the step-by-step access method to get to the survey. When you open up the city website, those are the steps you need to go through. And when you get to that, it'll get you the survey in English or Spanish, and then you can take it from there. So that's the state of the broadband master plan up to the moment. As I said, look for the next report to you being hopefully the final report in about May of this year. And on we go.
Any questions?
Okay.
Steve, can you, real quick, does it look like we're gonna get faster internet? Yes, yes or no?
Well, I get back to, are we willing to pay for it? I mean, it's all available at a price, but the point of the master plan is to identify, there are alternatives, ways to go about it, and there are costs involved with the alternatives, and so they're going to try and give us a little bit of structure to the discussion on what's the best way for Port Hueneme, which may not be the best way for Oxnard or Los Angeles or anything else. So it's really tailored to what we need here, and then we'll see what the cost is involved.
Actually do.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kinney, for your report and your work on the survey. Are you aware of any areas within the city where we don't have internet service? And will this survey identify that if we don't know that answer?
Councilwoman, I'm not aware of any areas that flat don't have internet, but there are certainly areas that have, let's say, problematic internet service. Pretty
I know
slow.
that
Yeah.
from experience. Yeah.
But we've heard from the school district, for example, that in the course of having to do all the at-home learning over the past few years, they've called out a few pockets, few neighborhoods that are relatively small, but within those pockets, I mean, the kids really had a struggle. And so that's part of the motivation to try and get a complete survey. So, digital equity is a very current phrase on it, and that's one of the objectives here, that we get continuity and uniformity of service throughout the city.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mr. Kinney, for your presentation. I do have a question. Will this at all help and affect? I know certain companies come in and they monopolize an area and you can only purchase internet from one company because I'm not sure how all that works, but will this open up the avenue and allow more competition? So we don't have to just settle for one overpriced company?
Well, let me piggyback on your phrase. I'm not exactly sure how this all works, but I think the answer is yes. I mean, I think their intention is to point out to the cities. In some cases, it's to the city's advantage to work with one provider, and in other cases, it's to the advantage for the city to own the basic system and then open it up to competition among several. So those are going to be some of the strategic options that will be explained to us in the report. Okay.
Is there any benefit to being close to the Navy? Because I'm pretty sure that they probably have really good internet. Or do they? Or is there
Oh,
something that we could partner with? Or
Good question, Councilman. And I believe the answer is yes, they've got good internet, and the partnership possibilities are limited, I think, for security reasons. And the same may be true to a lesser extent at the port. I know the internet resource is super important to the port as well, so we want to make sure they're really wired into this outcome. But the Navy, I think there's more likely to be sort of a firewall
so is it
there.
all wireless internet at this point? I mean, because when I drive down the street, my phone works. I could do this. I could do that. I could, just about anywhere I go in Ventura County. So I imagine it's all wireless now, or
No, actually not. There's a pretty extensive fiber optic cable system buried, throughout the county, and that's really the workhorse of the whole internet access system. That
So-
most home computers and TVs are connected through that.
so our phones operate on a different platform, I guess? Is that
Yes.
okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for your
Okay.
presentation, Mr. Kinney.
Sure.
I look forward to seeing you in May.
Right. Okay.
Okay, we will now move on to the consent calendar, and we will now consider items on the consent calendar, which will be enacted in one motion unless a council member has a request to remove an item for discussion. I had already mentioned that I would want to remove myself from item number 8, and we have also, we will be removing item number 7 and number 9 for a further date. Do I have a motion and a second to approve all items except for 7, 8, and 9?
I'll make a motion to approve items 4, 5, 6 on the consent agenda.
A second.
May we have a vote?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously.
Okay, and then I'd like to ask the city